we need a mayor whose policies and programs will focus on day one, on better paying jobs, on better housing, and bring a halt to displacement and gentrification around the city. The people of the community of Harlem are in solidarity with all of those who are still suffering from the ravages of the Hurricane Sandy, and to make sure that fairness, equity, and justice will guide the distribution of the billions of dollars that have been given to restore our communities, and Far Rockaway, and Brooklyn, and Staten Island, the Lower East Side, and of course in Harlem.
I mean, the big significance here is that it's 8.5 months after Sandy, and there are still people who are not back in their homes. There are still people dealing with mold. There was tons of inaccurate mold remediation done, so people are now having mold come back even if they had it supposedly dealt with in the first place. So there's just tons of issues that aren't being addressed quickly enough, and there's not enough access to information or resources for survivors. It's still really complicated to figure things out that you need to know in order to jump through the proper hoops.
My neighbor's got no heat. My neighbor's got no heat. My neighbor's got no light. My neighbor's got no light. Candidates, remember that. Remember that. When you sleep tonight. When you sleep tonight. Children living in the mold. Living in the mold. And you know that ain't right. And you know that ain't right. Candidates, remember that. Remember that. When you sleep tonight. When you sleep tonight.
Everywhere we go, people want to know who we are. So we tell them, we are New York City, the mighty five boroughs, covering standing, rebuild equality. Everywhere we go, people want to know who we are. So we tell them.
My concern is the plight of the citizens of Far Rockaway, who literally lost everything: jobs, homes, schools. There are approximately $1.6 billion coming to New York City, and that's a good thing. This money should be used to place the people who were displaced by Sandy. Have these same people involved in its reconstruction and have a stake in their community.
I am from Coney Island, and I am worried that all the planning they are doing with building an amphitheater in an area flooded by Sandy is already being done without the community's real input.
That's not right.
This project will not be beneficial to the community at any level if jobs created from it are going to be minimum wage jobs, or if concerts that were previously free will cost fees. This would be outrageous, especially because this will be done in our public land with no public input. Decisions are being made right now. We have to let the next mayor of New York City know that we want to turn the tide.
That's right.
Resiliency is not just physical infrastructure, but also social and economic infrastructure that low-income New Yorkers don't have right now.
Hey ho, in struggle we grow, we hammer and saw and we share what we know. Hey, hey, getting stronger each day, the government is but we'll be okay. We're Sandy survivors, we're proud, we're still here. We all stick together and we persevere. Our houses were wrecked, but our spirits intact. Our community's healing, and that is a fact. Hey ho, in struggle we grow. We hammer and saw and we share what we know. Hey, hey, getting stronger each day. The government screwed us, but we'll be
with Align, the Alliance for a Greater New York. I'm also coordinating the Alliance for a Just Rebuilding. To most of New York City, Hurricane Sandy is a distant memory, but not to the people from Staten Island, from the Rockaways, from the Lower East Side, from Brooklyn that are here today that were affected that day, October 29th of last year. And certainly it's not a memory to all the organizations, members of the Alliance for a Just Rebuilding and other allies that live this fight every day. That know that Sandy did nothing but actually expose and exacerbate inequities that were present even before the storm hit. Yes? Yes. If you were unemployed, if you didn't have affordable housing, if you had to work 3 jobs, do you think you could bear the brunt of Sandy easier or harder? Harder. Right? But now we're here because we think this strategy can be an opportunity. There's certain gaps to recovery. There's already money coming down to the city. But the people who are going to make the decisions moving forward about how we rebuild our city together are the mayoral candidates, the people who want to succeed Mayor Bloomberg. So we're here to say today, if you want to be mayor of New York City, you need to put the most vulnerable people first. That's right. If you want to be mayor of New York City, resiliency cannot only be physical infrastructure. It has to be the social and economic infrastructure that makes us stronger. So we're here to unveil our own ideas from grassroots organizations, labor unions, many of here you see their banners, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, environmental organizations, and we have a 4-point agenda for a just and equitable rebuilding in post-Sandy New York. So I'm going to invite a couple of speakers. Can you hold up the agenda a little bit? Great. So I'm going to invite a couple of people to come up and tell us why it's so important to have these 4 points. The first point in our agenda, if you give me 1 second, is our next mayor should ensure that Sandy recovery and rebuilding dollars create thousands of good local jobs. Do we like that? Yeah! To tell us a bit more about that, I invite Eudes Salas, who's a day laborer and member of the Workers' Justice Project.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Mi nombre es Eudes Salas.
My name is Eudes Salas.
Yo soy un miembro del proyecto de justicia laboral.
I'm a member of the Workers' Justice Project.
Soy un jornalero del Centro Comunitario Bay Parkway.
I'm a day laborer from the Bay Community Parkway,
en el cual yo consigo trabajo.
Where I gather to look for work.
Desde que el huracán Sandy impactó nuestras comunidades,
ever since Sandy impacted our communities,
nosotros los jornaleros fuimos unos de los primeros en responder en la limpieza.
We, the day laborers, were the first ones to respond on the cleanup operations.
Dimos voluntariado a las personas más necesitadas.
And we volunteered for people that needed the most.
También fuimos unos de los primeros en empezar la reconstrucción de las zonas afectadas.
We also were the first ones to begin rebuilding in the affected zones.
Pero nuestras experiencias van más allá.
But our experiences go further than that.
Del papel que jugamos en la limpieza y la reconstrucción.
From the cleaning and reconstruction operations.
Nuestras experiencias cuentan con varias condiciones de trabajo.
Our experiences also share the precarious conditions of work.
Mold,
asbestos
y plomo.
Asbestos and lead.
Así como hay contratistas buenos, hay contratistas responsables.
There's just like there are good contractors and responsible contractors, there's also bad contractors.
Ya que los contratistas irresponsables no nos dieron equipo de protección y salud adecuado.
Because the ones that were irresponsible did not provide us with the safety equipment.
Había algunos que no nos pagaban nuestros salarios.
There were many that didn't even pay us our just salaries.
La ciudad de Nueva York es también responsable en asegurar.
The city of New York is also responsible to ensure that the funds of the Sandy reconstruction
para crear trabajos dignos y seguros.
To create jobs with dignity and safe.
Para los contratistas responsables.
for those contractors that are responsible.
Demandamos también que se emplee a los trabajadores de la comunidad.
We also demand that employment be given to the people that live in the affected communities.
Para así apoyar la economía local.
So we can support the local economy. Thank you.
Yo perdí mi casa, todas mis cosas donde yo vivía.
My name is Florencia Olea. I work cleaning houses and I have lived with my brothers and sisters in Staten Island for 17 years. Before October 29th of last year, I was living peacefully with my daughter and my brothers and sister in a small home in Midland Beach. For me, everything was okay until after that day when everything changed. I ended up without a house, with nothing. I lost my job and had to live between various relatives' houses. In January, I moved to a house with my brothers and sister and their families. In total, we are 8 people in 3 small bedrooms. In Midland Beach, I paid $1,100, and now I pay $1,600 for less space with more people in an area where I don't feel safe. Right now, I am only working 3 days a week because some of my employers were also affected by Sandy, and they went away. Because of the increased rent and the scarce work, I've had to cut back on all of the family expenses to be able to pay the rent and the bills. For example, the little girls now don't have birthday parties. This makes me feel angry and powerless because I can't give them the normal daily things for girls of their age. Something has to change because I can't stand living like this. I only ask you to take into consideration all of the families in the affected areas that are going through this difficult moment. If they are from any area impacted by the hurricane, our children also have a right to live normal, dignified lives without all this pressure, because they are living day by day with us, and they deserve better.
Hello, everybody. Can you all hear me up there? Yeah. I want everybody to know I'm here representing public housing, a forgotten place on the map of New York City, the mayor, public housing, and everything else. Before Sandy, we were living in deplorable conditions as is. Public housing residents have gotten a bad rap that we are this, we are that, but more importantly, we caused the problem. In reality, the buildings are old and decrepit. When Sandy hit, it made it worse. I live in a building, one building, Carlton Manor. In the building, I live on the top floor. The roof has been so under-repaired that when it rains, it pours inside people's apartments. That's not right. So where there was once mold, you can only imagine how it's gotten worse. They paint over situations as opposed to correcting it because I understand they've mismanaged the money for years. Now it's time that Sandy has it, and unfortunately I feel really bad for my fellow neighbors and all the rest who've lost everything. Now is the time for the city and this new mayor to take advantage of whatever monies that are coming in to use it viably, to really put some equality into the system so that everybody is getting a fair and a decent place to live.
We've been working with the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority and the Robin Hood Foundation to put energy efficiency dollars into housing that's being rebuilt. We want to make sure that the households, they're not just being rebuilt rapidly, but they're being rebuilt sustainably in a way that keeps fuel bills down in the future and keeps housing affordable.
That's right.
Most importantly, the issue to us is immediately after Sandy, we had elected officials in the region saying courageously and correctly that the damage from Sandy is due to global warming. We haven't heard much since then about global warming, and we want to make sure that's on the agenda.
What the next mayor needs to know is that when the storm hit, NYCC and other community groups were on the ground providing relief when everyone else was still scared to go in. As soon as the storm hit, we were there for weeks with water, food, blankets, connecting people to medical attention and medical care. In fact, the Red Cross called us to see how they could help in the Rockaway. Community groups know the turf. We know the turf, we know the people, we know the issues. So we need for a long time the only ones on the ground after the storm, so we need to be at the planning table.
That's right.
Because we experienced firsthand what was going on and how to implement help and real change.
That's right.
Community groups need to have input into the planning for the next disaster.
That's right.
So don't put it in the hands of the people who are looking to profit from rebuilding. Put it to the hands of the people
who need jobs,
who are part of the rebuilding, who are involved and invested in the rebuilding with our lives and our sweat. And that's what New York Communities for Change and the other community groups who actually put their sweat and blood into the recovery work are about. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nastran. I'm with the New York State Nurses Association. I'm also a member of Occupy Sandy. Out in the Rockaways for over 5 months. When the state basically completely failed the community in the Rockaways and all the other areas that were devastated by Hurricane Sandy, it was volunteers that kicked into high gear and provided medical resources for a completely underserved community. Occupy Sandy had to start a pop-up clinic in the Rockaways to serve the needs of that community, which is an absolute outrage. And here we are so many months later, and we have a mayor that has been completely silent about the closure of Long Island College Hospital in Brooklyn, which served as a critical safety net hospital for the Red Hook community that was completely devastated. So we not only need a mayor, our next mayor will be accountable to these communities and will oversee the process of these funds being allocated, over $1 billion of funds that are going to be allocated, making sure they go to the most vulnerable communities and the most vulnerable residents, but that we also have a mayor that recognizes that healthcare is a human right. And that everyone in New York City has a right to healthcare. And so we need to recognize that all of these struggles are interconnected, that our fight for housing and healthcare and education are interconnected, and that Sandy cannot weaken us. It has to bring all of our struggles together as we fight for a just economy and we make sure that we have all of these resources for our communities. I want to say the New York State Nurses Association and Physicians for a National Health Program provided critical services after Hurricane Sandy hit, but that shouldn't be the case the next time a hurricane hits. We need a healthcare infrastructure that works for the people of New York City.
Elected officials, they spouted and posed, but few came through quickly with what they proposed. The government programs would help, we were told, but unfulfilled promises are getting old. Hey ho, in struggle we grow, we hammer and saw and we share what we know. Hey, hey, getting stronger each day. The government screwed us, but we'll be okay. The Occupy Sandy folks didn't make speeches, just showed up to help near those shorelines and beaches. Bringing clothing and food was the first of their labors. Then they cleaned up and rebuilt along with our neighbors. Hey ho, in struggle we grow, we hammer and saw and we share what we know. Hey, hey, getting stronger each day. The government screwed us, but we'll be okay. Again, hey ho, in struggle we grow, we hammer and saw and we share what we know. Hey, hey, getting stronger each day. The government screwed us, but we'll be okay. You all did a great job singing. Very good. Okay.
And the fight goes on.
Yep, the fight goes on.